We are live. Oh my God. I'm so excited for today's live to be joined by the wonderful and amazing Paula Peralta. How did I get so lucky?
Hello.
So
How did
lucky.
I? I'm excited too. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm going to wait. We'll wait a few minutes for you guys to jump on before we start going through questions. But this live, as you guys are probably aware, I called ask us anything. Like, so for anything that's actually like up in your business right now, we just thought we'd jump on and actually have a conversation and speak to whatever questions you guys have. And there was about 6 or 7 questions that were sent in from various platforms that we will go through or attempt to go through, depending how long it takes us to start going through them. Hello, yay, there's Mel. And let us know where you're watching from, and I'm so grateful to have all of you here with us. Amazing. So Paula, can you tell people like a little bit about you while we're waiting for a few more people to jump on?
Sure, it would be my pleasure. So my name's Paula Peralta. I like long walks on the beach and talking about business. So I live in Los Angeles, California, and I have multiple businesses that make me money. One of which is as a hairdresser. So I owned a salon with a whole team for a few years, and now I work in a private studio. I'm also an art director for a hair care company, and I also facilitate social media strategy. I facilitate classes for access consciousness. Thank you, whoever said I have amazing hair. It just says Facebook user, just so you know. So when I'm not calling you out by name, it's because in the comments I can't see your actual name. Anyway, I love creating and talking about business and money and really anything, relationships, sex, how they all are related or not related. And I am delighted to be there. Mel, hello. And delighted to be here and having the conversation with you, because we love brilliant conversations with brilliant people. So thank you for having me.
We love business. We're like those weird people that like really get excited about business. So I thought,
Totally.
I mean, Paula's my first guest in this group, and I just wanted to start inviting people to different conversations with you guys about all different things and all different questions you guys have. So I'm going to read some of these questions out and we're going to go through them. If you guys have any more questions like on live or anything else you want us to get to, please feel free to comment. But the first question was actually a lady that voice messaged me who's also a hairdresser. And this is like quite a common kind of thing that shows up for people in business. And she was saying that recently she gave someone information on products, like hair care products, via email. And the lady had responded and said that she hadn't delivered and the products and the email weren't meeting her needs, and started just saying all this stuff about not delivering needs and that it's complicated and, you know, that she's dyslexic and didn't want to read an email that long and all this kind of stuff. And it was interesting because, I mean, I have done the same thing, but this lady right away went into the wrongness of her, got defensive, made it her fault. And so the question was basically like, how do I get clarity, like when I'm stuck face to face or live with someone and not go in the wrongness of you? Like, so really the question is like, how do you deal with difficult people and how do you deal with difficult clients?
I think it's a really good question. And I think there's a couple of ways to approach this. One is like, you're not wrong. It's kind of the first like overarching thing. And it's interesting when you look at this thing about business, and it's so the ease that you have with it is so dictated by your mindset and the way that you choose to like approach it. So if you're approaching it from like, I'm wrong, like I'm a fraud, the whole imposter syndrome, then anything that shows up, you're gonna, because that's your underlying point of view, that is what's going to continue to show up. So in any situation where someone's trying to make you wrong, you just double down on the wrongness because basically they're buying in and proving the point of view that you already have. So that's the first thing you want to look at is like, what if you're not wrong? And what if you've never been wrong? And what if like everything can be a contribution? And so from that perspective, and it's a little, it takes some work to get to that place where you're willing to not make yourself wrong, because most of us for most of our lives got really good at that. And so then once from that space, you're like, okay, cool. So if I'm not wrong, what else is possible here that I haven't considered? And so asking questions is really, really key. So in that situation specifically, I would say, okay, so what can this person receive? So if she's coming at you via email and is like, you know, you're wrong, you did me wrong, you did me dirty, how dare you, you're wrong. It's like, okay, cool. So their target or their agenda there obviously is to make you wrong. And so what can they receive from that email? So if it needs to be like, you know what, I am so sorry, I did not think about how inconvenient this would be for you. Like, what can I do to make up for the damage done? Is like easy, bam, done, like take the wind out of her sails. And then the next thing that I would say about that is you might want to look at like, how can you do your business differently to like facilitate more ease with people. So for example, if someone's dyslexic, if someone's hearing impaired, if someone's visually impaired, right? So maybe it's you make a video, maybe it's you have, you know, an audio, maybe it's, you know, there are other ways to approach your business. So if you weren't making yourself wrong, what could you learn from that? What could you take away from that situation that would actually create your business even greater than it was before? And that's the beauty of like doing business from the brilliance of you and not from the wrongness of you, because everything can be a platform to leap into the next possibility that you haven't even maybe thought of.
Yeah. I love that. And I've had this come up for me before as well. And I think like the other key I wanted to add to that, Paula's brilliance, was to acknowledge when someone judges you, they're trying to control you. Like when someone uses feelings, they're trying to control you. Like when someone uses emotion, they do that to control you. So it's really key to start getting this information and start to acknowledge where a lot of people function from. Because I think also like growing up, if you're someone that like has been taught to always see the good in others and always see the best in others, like we're cutting off total awareness of where people are actually functioning from and what people are going into this situation trying to get or trying to prove. And the other thing is like when someone's trying to make you wrong or when someone makes you wrong, they're always looking to make themselves right. And so what Paula mentioned is, again, it's like, would you prefer to be right or would you prefer to be free? So the other thing with this is to actually go, I'm so sorry. What can I do to make up for the damage done? Or, you know what, you're right. I'm wrong. What can I do to create even more ease with this? And the thing is, what that does is it dissolves all these walls and barriers where this person's going to fight to prove the rightness of them. And most people don't expect you to be willing to be wrong. They're looking for you to create the fight as well so they can have a justified reason to actually leave. And this is the thing like that for me with facilitation like has shown up. I did a class at some point, which was this brilliant class. And I think it was a relationship done different class. And everyone got so much out of it and there was so much change. And this lady messaged me about a week later saying that she was disappointed that we didn't really go through the manual, that we didn't even talk about relationships. And I went into this total like wrongness of me. I wanted to fight to prove like the rightness of me, that I wasn't wrong, even though I knew that I was wrong. And I had messaged one of my friends and they said like, so truth, how much was that person trying to prove you wrong in order to make themselves right and in order to justify not receiving everything you're actually inviting them to? Mm-hmm. So let's do this. Everything that brings up for all of you, you just join on Create That times a gazillion.
Yes, right. Good and bad, pod and poc, all nine shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. Yeah.
And the other thing I'll quickly add to this, like this question is, I remember Gary Douglas once saying that 60% of the people in your life actually want a reason to get rid of you. Whether that's 60% of your clients, whether that's 60% of like friends, family, like 60% of people are literally looking for a reason to get rid of you so they can dismiss you and actually never receive from you. So if you are willing to like function and acknowledge the space where people actually function from, then what else is possible? What would it take for me to have total awareness with where everyone's functioning from with total ease?
1,000%. Yeah, I love that. And I think there are so many different ways to like to navigate it. And really there is no right way and there is no wrong way. It's more like what works for you and what is it that you'd like to create. And the overarching thing is you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to approach it from that space, like you're not wrong, but you're also not right, then what's actually available to you that you haven't even considered.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. It's never personal, ever.
Totally. That one can be tricky because sometimes it feels personal in like the split second you're like, ugh, but then you're like, oh, it's actually not even about me. So anytime someone's going into like the abuse or the whatever it is, the projection or the, you know, the nastiness, it feels personal because they're trying to make it personal. But it's exactly what you said, Ashlee. Like when people want the fight and you don't give them the fight, it immediately takes the wind out of their sails. And then, you know, you just give them what they want. If it's not personal, you can give people what they want every time and it doesn't even matter. You just keep it pushing and keep creating.
Yeah, totally. And someone said I didn't want to give in to that, but it created resistance in me. So yeah, I get it. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, really, it's like asking the question, what's going to create the most ease here? What would it take for me to have total awareness with what they're trying to get out of this or what they desire to like create with this? And from that, then you can always like have the awareness of, okay, cool, what's going to create the most for me to choose now if there was no such thing as right and wrong.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Amazing. So the next question we had was, how do I make myself more visible? This is a big question. This is a big conversation. Yeah. I was like, this is a whole 12-month program. How do I make myself more visible? Is it that I'm not willing to receive? How do I get clients to make the sales I require?
Yeah. It is a really big question. And I was like, maybe we need to create like a program. But so there's a couple of things is you asked who, and I wonder, I don't know if you're on here person that asked this question, but is it that I'm not willing to receive? And my question is it? Because really only you know that. The other thing I would say is that you also want to look at what you've decided, like there's a couple of things. You've also like, what does being seen mean to you? Like what definitions do you have of that? What have you decided that is? Because there's often, let me like break this down super simply. So basically, like it's really cute that you think you can hide, first of all, because we're all like these infinite, brilliant, beautiful beings that like show up in all of our natural beauty and our natural like just amazingness, right? Our kindness and our brilliance and just like the gift that we are to the world. And so you can't really hide. Like that's the the biggest lie, is that you actually can't hide. Now, what you can do is you can use your capacities against yourself to in order to not receive, right? Which is also a choice. And so what I would say with that is like, you just want to look at, am I trying to hide here? And if you are, like, what else is possible? Like, what would you like to choose? And I mean, there's so many places you could go with that, but yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing is like, you can't really hide. So what is it that you'd like to create in the world being you?
Yeah. And I mean, this is a massive conversation where that's really about the right voice for you classes. Yeah. And so there's so many different ways that we can go with this. But I guess what I wanted to add on top of that is, one, you can ask yourself, so what would I have to be willing to receive in order to actually show up and be seen? And the thing is, it's like with having your voice in the world, with making yourself more visible, with having more people see you, it requires a whole lot of receiving. And so the thing is, it's like, again, we're not empowered to know what receiving actually is for us. And I mentioned this in a call the other day. I said, but how many of you have already decided that you don't receive or you can't receive? Mm-hmm. And not receiving and not acknowledging that you're already receiving is exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so how many of you guys have already decided that you don't receive or you're not good at receiving, and that decision is actually creating like the reality that's showing up for you? Is it true that you don't know how to receive? Is it true that you're not already receiving? Because in order to have like any awareness, in order to start functioning from someone else's reality, even when you use that tool, who does this belong to? You're receiving information and awareness. Mm-hmm. If you've all of a sudden decided that you are not receiving, or you can't receive, or you don't know how to, you're literally functioning from this space of creating that as your reality, when is that actually even what's true?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so awesome. I love that thing about like how much are you willing to receive, like, and really looking at that from such a, again, you're not wrong, but like what are you willing to receive, what are you not willing to receive? The other thing I was going to say about that is that going back to the thing of not hiding or the unwillingness to receive, like you really have to look at what you've decided. Again, it's like the decisions, it's the judgments, it's the conclusions that we have of like, what have you decided receiving is that it isn't, and what have you decided receiving isn't that it is, and how much has actually shown up that you haven't acknowledged. Because the other thing too is, you mentioned right voice for you, but anything that you're willing to acknowledge can get greater.
Yeah.
So if you're actually like, even if you just have like this much receiving, right, and that's all you've been willing to receive up to this point, that's okay. Acknowledge that and be so grateful for that, and then be willing to have that exponentialize. So it's not about trying to like one choice that's going to change everything, or like, okay, today I'm receiving. It's not like the force of like, I'm changing this. You can make the demand of you, and also be willing for it to grow and exponentialize and shift and change the more that you grow and exponentialize and shift and change.
Yeah. And begin by asking questions like, what would it take for me to be willing to receive more than I've ever received before? Yeah. What would it take for more people to know about these products than I've ever considered was actually possible? Because remember, asking questions is the beginning of all creation. You've got to ask questions in order to receive everything that you actually desire. So how much are you actually asking? Have you been asking? Or are you just thinking and deciding and concluding like how to get more clients or how to make yourself more visible? Ask the question, because also when you ask the question and you begin to include you in the world, then you begin to access like way, way more receiving. And I'll quickly add to that as well. What I've recognized recently is so many of us decide that we're hiding, or we don't want to be visible or seen because we're not willing to receive judgments of other people. We're not willing to receive the nastiness and the meanness and the insanity that a lot of people do function from. And so I had decided that I wasn't willing to show up and be even more visible because of that, until I actually truly got to the awareness of it's actually my unwillingness to receive total adoration, to receive gratitude, to receive the change I'm actually creating in the world by showing up. And for me, that was way more uncomfortable than actually receiving the judgments of other people, because the judgments of others are literally just matching the point of view and the judgments that I already have of myself. So ask as well, with that whole thing about receiving and being seen, like, how many people's lives am I comfortable with changing? How many people am I comfortable with knowing about me? And how much gratitude and adoration am I comfortable with receiving? And what would it take to receive way beyond that with total ease?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point about like, so often the thing about like receiving judgment or receiving in general is, anytime you're not clear on what it is that you'd like to create, it's really our natural instinct kind of is to like shy away, right? So the minute someone sees us, the minute someone celebrates us, the minute someone criticizes us, the minute someone judges us, like we always run away from that. But when you're so clear on who you are and you're so ready to be like, okay, this is what I'm creating, like this is my business, this is my product, this is whatever it is, right? Like there is this like joy in the creation, and I don't mean like joy, Tigger, bouncy, happy. There is that, but I mean like there's just this joy of creation that you're like, I don't care what shows up. I am going to like have my back harder than anyone else. I'm going to create this, and I'm not going to stop creating. There is nothing that can stop me. And so I love like that thing about where you just talked about the willingness to receive it. It almost like it just grows on its own when you're willing to have your own back and you're willing to like truly believe in what it is that you're creating. But you got to do the work to do that. Now that's the piece where sometimes people, they try to skip that step in getting clear.
Totally. Amazing. Do any of you guys watching have any questions as well? feel free to pop it in the comments. So there's a few questions now. It's interesting that are talking about like boredom. So one of them is, what can I add to my business? I'm bored already.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was like, when your business pops up and says it's bored with you and how you're creating, what now? And the other one, and I'll just kind of add this in there as well, is I haven't started my business yet, but I'm already bored when perceiving the future of it.
Amazing.
So that's like 3 questions that were like very similar. So first of all, everywhere you guys have decided that you're bored, can we just throw in a great that times a gazillion?
Yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about the boredom thing?
Well, I think with the boredom thing, like it's really to get clear on like, oh, again, there's so many different ways we could go with this. But for me, when boredom actually shows up, it's like, okay, again, it's that question, like, what else can I add here?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I notice that I'm bored, it's generally speaking like not so much that I'm actually sick of doing what I'm doing, but there's different things that require to be added or different things that can actually change. And the thing is, like with humanoids, you've got to have 10 things on the go at all times to actually like to not actually be bored and to keep yourself from constantly creating something greater rather than creating problems in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the first question, like when your business pops and it says it's bored with you and how you're creating, ask yourself, okay, is that actually true? Is it my business that's bored, or is it that I'm bored?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that my business desires to be something different, or do I desire it to be something different?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to ask more questions to get more clarity on what it is so you can actually start creating and shifting and changing that. So with the whole boredom thing as well, is it boredom or is it relaxation? Is it boredom, or has my business taken on its own energy and starting to create itself? That now it feels like, it seems like you can no longer feel it. It seems like it's no longer there anymore. So start playing with those questions, like, and what else can I add today to create way more fun in my business right away?
Mm-hmm.
What information am I missing here that's required? What does my business desire? Where does my business desire to be? And I really think for that, it's like asking more questions to gain more awareness on what's next.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And I think the other thing I would add to that is like, who can you add to your business? So if it's, maybe it's like something with, I don't know, we'll just say spreadsheets, and you hate spreadsheets. Like you can't understand a Google Doc to save your life. So who can you add to your business that could help you create what it is that you desire to create? Like you don't have to do it by yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions as like entrepreneurs or like solopreneurs is kind of the like conversation now, is like we very much have this idea of like, I got to grind and hustle by myself and like no one can do it. I can do it. And it's like, well, that's actually a limitation. That unwillingness to add someone to your business or to be like, no one can do it as well as I can, like ask for someone that's better than you to show up in your business. Ask someone that actually desires and has the capacity to create even greater to show up for your business. And so I think that's the first thing. And the other thing that I would say to that is the thing about the boredom is I would ask, like, do you actually desire to be creating what it is that you're creating? And that's, I think, a conversation that's really confronting, that it's a question that most people don't want to ask, but yes, you can change it. And also maybe it's time to put it to bed and like create something different. Or maybe you set it down and go create something different. It's more that thing of giving yourself the space to do it and being willing to walk away from it than like telling yourself you're locked in and, I got to make this work and I got to grind and hustle and keep, balancing the spreadsheets or whatever that is. So being willing to close the business, to end production of the product, to stop facilitating, whatever that is, actually creates a space where then you're in choice. Because the minute you've decided or concluded, no, I've got to do this, I've got to make it work, like, well, that's a conclusion. And then you're just basically trapping yourself into an even smaller space. And as humanoids and creators of magnitude, we hate that. Like, nothing will ever stop your creation faster than when someone tells you, or like when you try to force yourself, or someone tries to force you to do something you don't want to do. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so give yourself the space to choose something different, and indulge. Like, what would happen if you closed your business? And be with that for a day. Okay, today I have no business. I'm not an entrepreneur. There are no spreadsheets to do. There's no payroll to be paid. Like, I am closing my business, and just indulge in that. Is it lighter for you? Is it more fun for you? And then the next day, or, you don't have to do full 24 hours. You could do like a couple of hours if you wanted, but, and then the next bit of time, like, okay, I'm keeping my business. I'm excited. I'm enthused by it. I'm really excited about creating, and ask yourself, like, what would I need to add to my business in order to be so enthusiastic about this? Like, I don't want to sleep. Like, I just wake up thinking about my business and what I can create.
So I was just about to say that question as well. That's a really good question to ask. And the other part of that question as well is, like, basically, like, when does it start to get really fun? Or am I just telling myself a story? And the thing is, like, again, start asking that question, like, what would be so fun for me that I'm so enthusiastic to get out of bed? What would be so fun for me through that space of total enthusiasm and joy? I become the pull that nothing and no one can resist. Because when we're talking about, like, winging it, quote unquote, in business, the more joy you're actually being, the more enthusiasm you're actually being, you become this pull that everyone that's actually looking for that shows up, because they want to come to the fun party, not the party where you're like, I hate my life and I hate my business and this is so boring. So it's like, the more enthusiastic you are about something, energetically, it creates this pull that people will just start showing up. And I noticed this with myself dynamically. When certain classes are fun, certain things are more fun for me to do, the energy is way bigger. And really, for any single class that I'm creating, if the energy seems dead, contracted, like, I think about that class and I'm like, oh, I couldn't even be bothered to deal about, posting about this, or I don't even want to engage in the threads, then I'm like, okay, what fun can I actually instill into this? And recently with me, I'm actually leaving to go to Paris in 1 day's time, and I'm facilitating classes in Europe, and I'm doing a foundation class in 2 weeks. And the energy, like, initially was like joy, and then it started getting like really contracted. And I said, can we just jump on a meeting? And I do meetings differently. I don't talk about, like, okay, this needs to happen and this needs to happen. It's like, okay, what can we actually be together? And we started doing some clearings, and I was like, how much fun can we truly have with this? Like, everywhere we've made this significant, everywhere we've made this serious, everywhere we've decided that if this doesn't work out, I can never facilitate overseas again. Like, I'm going to have to quit my business. Like, there's all these points of view that we actually function from and we make significant that we're not even actually aware of. Yeah. So begin to destroy and uncreate, like, all the significance, all the relevance, all the meaning that you've placed on business. Who are you being when you're functioning from that space? You or someone else? How many people that do business from the space of this reality, it's all about serious and significance and numbers, and you cannot have fun. Like, business in this reality is not fun. It's about, we've got to, like, make enough money to, like, cover your ass so you don't have to, like, close the business.
Yeah.
And so if you start destroying and uncreating all of that and just go, how much fun can we have here? And begin to tap into those products, those classes, those creations. Allow it to show you what it desires to be. And when I stopped making it about everything else and tapped into the change that those classes and creations desire to be in the world, what they knew was actually possible, that's when, like, I started getting really enthusiastic again of, like, oh my God, this class desires to be so big. This class desires to invite international people, So start actually tapping into the energy of those creations and products. Ask it what it knows is possible and what it desires to be in the world. And for me, that starts to create way more enthusiasm and joy by not so much making it about business, but actually making about the possibility that will create in the world.
Yeah, totally. The other thing too, just to add to that, is it's so brilliant to, like, look at the energy and, like, what is it that what futures is creating, what do we desire for it to be, but also ask the creation. So for those of you that ask her questions or asking questions about your business, ask your business to contribute to the future of the business. Like everything can be a contribution, and your business, your product, whatever it is, like it is an energetic entity. And so it can absolutely take on a life of its own if you are willing to be out of control enough to let it, and to actually invite it to the possibilities that are actually available. And so when you're willing to say like, okay, business, like, listen, we got to generate X amount of dollars or the doors are going to close, right? Like, and that's a really dramatic example, but you can say like, okay, cool. So what would it, and what would it take for this amount of money to show up? Or what would it take for someone that's, even greater than me in this business to show up? Whatever that is, like, hey, business, can you pull in the people, the products, the places, the opportunities, the money that is required in order to, generate and create the future that we know is possible. So you can absolutely talk to your business, and really all areas of your life, and ask it to contribute.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. 2 more questions. But there's a quick one. Like, they've written, I observed that reels are now really popular on Instagram. Can you share how you question your business to know which social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and which tool, video, post, or reel, is more adapted to the message you desire to share?
Yeah, so I talk about social media a lot. I've facilitated a lot of classes about social media as well. But what I will say is that you have to do what works for you, first of all. Like, overarching, you can't force yourself to do something if you don't want to do it. That's just like, sorry, it's the way it is. So if Facebook is super fun for you, great, play on Facebook. If Instagram's not so fun for you, then don't go to Instagram. If you don't even have a TikTok account, that's fine. But what you also want to look at is what future is that creating with your business? Because from a marketing standpoint, there are different demographics on different platforms. There's different information that relates and is communicated differently on different platforms as well. So your question is about reels, and there are now, like, YouTube has reels, TikTok has reels, Instagram has reels, Facebook has reels. And so it's really just about what content is fun for you to create. And so instead of looking at like, what's the right way to do this, I would ask, like, what's fun for you? What is it that you actually desire to create? What is the messaging? And sometimes you do, it's not all rainbows and sunshine in business. Like, sometimes you do have to get really present and be like, okay, I don't love being in front of the camera, but it might be required for this moment. And so I'm going to just do it. And it might take you a little longer than you'd like it to. That's okay. It'll get easier the more you do it. But it's like, what if you had someone in front of you and you were talking to them about your product, or you were talking to them about your business or the tool or whatever it is? Like, if you had them right in front of you, how would you speak to them? And bring that energy into the creation of your content, whether it's a post, whether it's a reel, whether it's a live, whatever that is. Like, pull the energy through the camera as if someone's on the other side of that camera, and you're the same way that you would talk to them and engage with them, do the same thing. And whether it's pretending that you know who's on the other side or whatever that is, find a way to be you and be authentic, because that's what people are always going to react and respond to. And have fun, because that more than anything is going to create.
Yeah, I was going to say, for that one, it's just what would be fun for me. Because the thing is, like, if you're trying to get it right, if you're trying to figure out the best way to do it, if you're trying to, like, if you're creating your business from the space of computation and conclusion, like, well, if I do this, this will create the most for my business, you are cutting off a whole bunch of awareness, and you're cutting off the contribution your business desires to be for you, to let you know where it desires to be. Because your business may desire to be on Facebook, and even though you've decided that Instagram would create the most, it's like, if you listen to that, it'll send you where the potential, like, clients are actually playing. Mm-hmm. And if it's not fun for you, you're going to destroy your business anyway. Like, that's just like, period. that's like the number one rule. If it's not fun for you, there's no point trying to figure out like the best thing to do, because you'll destroy it in the end anyway, because you cannot maintain and create something that is not fun for you. It is not sustainable. So, and you've got to give yourself permission to constantly change. Like, I'm constantly changing class dates. changing locations, canceling classes. Like, if you give yourself permission to be that out of control and only choose based on what's fun, I can guarantee it'll create way more than you having to figure out what's going to create the most. And that really is that energy of winging it, really.
Totally.
So amazing. And last question. This is also a big one, but we can like keep it a little bit smaller.
We don't do baby questions here. We only do the big ones.
Yeah. How to step out of my comfort zone so I can see what's available and do it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's a big conversation. I would say it really depends on the person. And also, like, what have you decided is valuable about your comfort zone that keeps you choosing it? Because that's the thing, is like anything that you're not changing, you're choosing. So if you're choosing it, that's because you've decided, whether that's right or wrong or true or not, you've decided that there's something about it that's valuable. And so generally, let's just say, okay, most people choose to stay in their comfort zone because they feel like it's safe, right? Like, I'm safe here. I can, it's controlled. It's predictable. I understand this, right? Like, I'm not uncomfortable. And so obviously those are things that, traditionally people value, especially in business, right? Like, you want to know that you're going to stay in business five years from now. And so the question that I would look at is, are you willing to be out of control? And if you're not, that's okay. You're not wrong. It's that willingness to acknowledge, like, hey, you know what? Nope, I'm not willing to be out of control. And then you can ask, okay, cool. So what else is possible? Like, what else can I receive here that I haven't received up to this point? And if you are willing to be out of control, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like throw out the entire rule book and burn down the building or whatever that is. It's like, okay, cool. So now with this energy of out of control, I have this entire universe of possibilities available to me that I may not have even considered before or knew that they were available. And from that space, it's like, okay, cool. Which one of these is actually going to create the greatest? And you wait for that one to ping and pop, and then you choose. And I think the thing about, being in your comfort zone, again, is there is this like lie that occurs, much like the wrongness conversation that we started this live with, but there's this lie that occurs that, like, being predictable and, staying in the black and financially in your business and, and making sure that you can control and cross your T's and dot your I's and, what your staff's doing. Like, there are these lies that run through business that we buy, but it's like, what if you were actually willing to be terrible at business? And what if you were willing to do business unlike anyone else has ever existed? And while that might initially seem scary, or it might initially seem like risky, there's also on the other side of that so much possibility when you're willing to be so out of control and so unlimited. So if you're out of control, for me, like, I often will flip this in facilitation, is like, what if you were being willing to be absolutely unlimited in your capacity for creation? Because the truth is you are. But it's that desire for control or comfort that actually keeps us from choosing the infinite possibilities that are available.
Boom. I love that. Totally. And really, like, with that, it's like the question I would also ask for you to get more clarity is like, what am I avoiding with the comfort zone I'm choosing? And what am I defending with the comfort zone I'm choosing? And so what you're avoiding may be like the unlimited possibilities that are available to you, your greatness, like everything you've ever known is actually possible. And you might be defending someone else's reality. Like, you might be defending like everything is actually available. Like, so again, it's like, start asking yourself, what am I avoiding with the comfort zone I'm choosing? And what am I defending with the comfort zone I'm choosing? And that'll gift you more clarity as well. But ultimately, like, we choose it. So it's like humanoids will continue to choose what they choose until they are bored of it. And I've said this so many times before, but it's like, ask the question, what would it take to be so bored of this comfort zone that I choose beyond anything I've ever imagined is actually possible before? You'll keep choosing comfort until it no longer works for you. So what if you started asking, like, what would this take for this to no longer work for me? And what would it take for me to choose beyond this with total ease? And the thing is, I think, like, and particularly when we talk about like relationships, business, like whatever it is, how often have you guys decided like the thing that you choose beyond your comfort zone is not necessarily greater. But I can guarantee the thing you always choose beyond your comfort zone will always be greater. What if everything beyond your comfort zone is and only can be something greater? And if you were willing to acknowledge that, what would it take for me to be willing to receive that greater with total ease? And this is where you've got to get brutally honest with yourself and start asking, like, am I willing to receive what's actually greater?
Mm-hmm.
And everything that is, and everywhere you're not willing to acknowledge that that which is beyond your comfort zone will only ever be something greater than what you're choosing and what is available to you now. We destroy and create that times a gazillion.
Yes, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds.
Amazing. Well, I think that's like all 7 questions. How does it get any better? Thank you so much for being here with me, Paula. You're amazing.
And thank you. It's an honor to be here. So, and I always love our conversations. It's cool to like also like where we approach it from 2 different perspectives, or like, you know, the way that we facilitate, we're very different, but yes, I love we're all moving forward in the same direction, hopefully.
Yeah. There's one common target.
Yes.
Thank you guys for being here with us, and thank you for your questions, those of you that sent them in. If you have anything further, please feel free to like message one of us or comment in the Facebook group or wherever you're actually watching this from. And Paula, do you want to let people know where they can find more about you or?
Yeah, for sure. So you can always go to paulaperalta.com. That's my website. I'm on Instagram a lot, the Paula Peralta. And if you don't already know, Ashlee and I have a class coming up, the Irresistible Invitation in Business, which is actually on ashleerose.com. So you can check that out as well. But yeah, I love like listening to people's celebrations and questions and things like that. So these groups are really cool and these conversations are awesome. So
amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. And we'll see you next time. I think at the end of the month is our next live.
Amazing.
Maybe 6th from I'll be in Milan or maybe Lake Como or maybe Venice. I'm not sure. In Italy, somewhere.
Somewhere in Europe. Amazing. We'll enjoy. Bye, everyone.
Bye.